our first speaker. That's Dr. Yun Ishikawa. Please do come to the stage. Professor Yun Ishikawa is the chairperson of the Commission on the Policy of Persons with Disabilities and has had a long-standing career, having had his early education in Tokyo. And among the different fields that Professor Ishikawa has been working on, in sociology, he has written and done research on issues of identity politics, on the sociology of emotions, accessibility, inclusive society, and more particularly on disability studies, where he has written some quite noteworthy papers. One of them is Invitation to Disability Studies, Society, Culture, and Disability. And another one on Invisibles and Visibles, Disability Studies of Sociability and Assistance. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Professor Ishikawa. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Moderator, and good afternoon to distinguished speakers, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great honor for me to be a speaker of this important summit. By attending it, I learned a lot about issues of out-of-school children. As a sociologist and as an assistive technology developer for the blind and deafblind, and the chair of the Disability Policy Advisory and Monitoring Commission of Japanese government, I've been working a long time for accessibility and other human rights issues of persons with disabilities. I noticed, however, that my commitment to education was on students with disabilities or in-school children with disabilities. What I had in my mind was such questions as next. How can we make the education system more inclusive? How can we provide reasonable accommodations to students with disabilities? How can I develop a more innovative assistive technologies for the blind and deafblind students? That is why I'm not sure whether I can contribute to the objectives of the summit. So I really appreciate if you participants could take out something useful from my presentation, if there are. This slide. Children with visual impairment cannot study without accessible textbooks, namely Braille textbooks, large print textbooks, and DAISY textbooks. Children with dyslexia cannot study without multimedia digital textbooks, such as Multimedia DAISY. Here, I would like to call everyone's attention to the fact that children diagnosed as intellectual disabilities are often dyslexic. There's no doubt that assistive technology is a highly effective tool in education of children with disabilities. However, we cannot say that the assistive technology is sufficiently provided to all such children. Although the situation varies by country, this insufficiency is present in every state of the world. Children with visual impairment should study in an environment equipped with computers with a screen reader installed, Braille note-takers, and magnifiers. The PowerPoint slide shows Braille Sense, one of the most popular Braille note-takers developed by HIMSS International. I have been working for the localization of this note-taker to Japanese, and I made main software running on this device. Schools in the community and the schools for the blind, as well as local resource centers, need to acquire Braille printers scanners and OCR, and equipment for manufacturing tactile educational materials. Children with visual impairment need tactile educational materials to understand science, math, geography, and history. For example, vocal description of, say, Gothic architecture will not enable a person with visual impairment to grasp what kind of architectural style it really is. Honestly, I'm one of those who don't know yet. What we need is to have a rich selection of tactile educational materials, such as a miniature of a Gothic building sold to tourists, or one made using a 3D printer. Next slide, please. Today, I'd like to introduce a next generation printing system developed by Casio that produces tactile graphics called 2.5D printing. I have with me samples of tactile graphics. I am going to pass these around, so please touch them and look at front side and back side. Tactile graphics is printed independent from ink print. Roughly speaking, the black part of the back side is swollen. There are a giant hornet, a snake, and other too dangerous to touch living things. Some maps of Bangkok, a quadratic function of math, and graphs representing acupuncture, meridians, and points. You may be familiar that you can print tactile graphics with swirl paper or with braille embossers such as Tiger printer or index printers. Tiger printers developed by John Gardner and his View Plus technologies was very innovative. But this 2.5D printing system is a new innovation. By the way, although tactile educational materials are very important, simply providing them to children is not enough. Without vocal guidance, it is difficult for them to understand what they mean. If a teacher or teaching assistant is with each blind student side by side and explain when the student touches the tactile materials, the students understand them very well. But often there is just not enough manpower to do so. That is when a system using pressure-sensitive tablets or cameras that detects the place the student is touching and automatically provides voice guidance can be very helpful. Then how can we create tactile data and share them? I think the best way would be a cloud-based co-creative system that would store and update tactile data and the corresponding description data uploaded by teachers and volunteers. Children with intellectual disabilities can communicate with others using VOCA, voice output communication aid, and other methods of AAC, augmentative alternative communication. I want to show you a VOCA application, DropTalk. DropTalk assists children with autism and other disabilities for whom it is difficult to communicate using speech. Children with autism and other developmental disabilities communicate more easily with symbols or using voca. By installing DropTalk into an iPhone or an iPod Touch, one can acquire the functions equivalent to or superior to an expensive special voca device. Specialized assistive technology hardware such as Braille notetakers, magnifiers, or Braille printers are still expensive due to the limited size of the market, and we cannot hope for a radical price down any time soon. That is why there is a need for a governmental system of grant, international cooperation, and donations from civil society or private sector. On the other hand, it is a recent trend that more assistive technology software is developed by open source projects. NVDA is the truly outstanding one among them. Mainstream products such as iPhone, Android phone, iPad, iPad have more powerful accessibility features installed from the beginning, and many accessible applications are developed by third parties for free or almost for free for these platforms. Kindle apps on these platforms are also accessible and are highly useful for higher education. Accessibility is achieved by the collaboration of inclusive design of mainstream product and assistive technology meeting the needs of each particular disability. If we use mainstream inclusive product and free assistive technology software, it can significantly reduce the cost of governments, schools, and parents. CRPD clearly states that the state parties that ratify it must do its best to provide inclusive and best education, accessible textbooks, assistive technology, and communication support to children with disabilities. Education is a basic human right because it opens the door for tomorrow. Thank you very much.